So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans. Welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Trying to prop up it broke my chair. First things first. That hasn't been why I haven't done a podcast in a while. I broke my chair actually months and months and months ago, but I've really broken my chair now. And so I was trying to get myself comfortable before we set in for this Q&A today. But first of all, actually, do you want to see this? I got a class top today. And it is a 1996 training top, and it fits like a glove. Absolutely brilliant. This is my pride and joy at the moment, and it's like as if it's never been worn. So that was a cracking pickup from me today. But anyway, I digress about that. How's everyone doing? It's been a while. It's been almost a week. Paddy's away in his hollybobs at the moment. And to be honest with you, I'm just flat out in work for the last couple of days, about the last week. And I was off work today. I'm off work again tomorrow. I was working over the weekend and I didn't really get a chance to do a whole lot of podcasts, but there hasn't been a whole lot of, I know there's been links and there's been rumors and there's been stuff like that, but there's nothing really concrete. And we're in this kind of no man's land between now and the 30th of June. So I just said I'd pop up and I'd say, do you guys have any questions that you'd like my absolutely uneducated opinion on it all? And I'd love to give my uneducated opinion over the medium of internet to you guys if you do so wish to have to hear that uneducated opinion. But thanks to millions to everybody who put in some questions into there on Twitter. I'm going to go down through a couple of those because there's some really, really good questions on it. Also, guys, firing questions here as well. Do you know what we'll do just to make it easier so they pop off the screen? If you can put in question at the top or at the start of your question, just so that I can just look down and see who has question at the start. If you guys do have any, and I'll see if I am able to answer it for you. Preferably Villa related would be great, but this can go anywhere. I've even brought cans of beer. I've brought cans of beer. We'll do one of Paddy's. Oh, there's water you open into that can. Jesus. Great little brewery here beside me. Literally beside me. I could nearly throw a stone in through the window of the brewery. They're a super brewery. They're called Galway Bay Brewery. And I'm drinking one of their Lush Extra Pale Ales tonight. Very careful pour here while we're doing this. For anybody listening back to this in the podcast, it's not going to make much sense. I'm pouring a beer for anybody who's listening back to this in audio. Anyway, let's have a little gander anyway at some of the questions that came in. There'll be a lot of filler in this one. Oh no, I can't. I won't. Where is my Twitter gone to? There we go. That's it. I got it here. So where are we? Yeah, so actually the very first one that wasn't a joke one was from Gary Davis, who says talk about how you managed to work full time, do your pod and be a family man. That takes some work. It doesn't because I'm lucky that I work from here, literally where I am. I work from home, so while work can be busy, and it does get busy, and sometimes you have to work hours and have to work American hours as well, because I do work for American multinational, sometimes you're just able to take that time during the day or in the afternoon or at night time and just do your podcast as well. But the biggest reason I got into podcasting, for those of you that don't know, is I used to play 3 or 4 different sports, and I was retired by COVID, and everything that went on during that period of time. And even prior to that, 2019, when we started this podcast, I knew there was going to be an end to me playing sports. I was only playing sports at a local amateur level, but it took up a lot of my time. You were 4 or 5 nights out. You had a routine, you had a structure, and everything like that. And God knows I would have cracked up if I didn't have that structure. So prior to kids coming along, that's where I did it, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done because I got to meet so many people and just have fun. Just have fun. As I say, we don't take a penny out of this podcast, myself and Paddy. We don't need it. We don't want it. We give away stuff when we get advertising money, and we give away jerseys, we give away stuff like that. And, we build up a little bit of a kitty in case we want to have any live events. And that's what this is about. It's a bit of crack. And what it does as well is because I work from home, I don't have any commute to work. You will crack up all day long. I'm working from home 15 years, so I was doing it before it was cool. And, you don't have, when you don't have that kind of water cooler conversations and stuff like that, like this, sometimes it's great to just pop on, have a chat with the internet and, just kind of, talk about something that you love, which is Aston Villa. So that's really how I do it. I try and build in time for it, even if it's only 20 minutes every day, even if I'm not doing a podcast that I'm looking at a player or something like that. And it's just a built-in routine because, as I say, I was very, very active sporting wise. You wouldn't think it to look at me now, about 3 or 4 stone later. I am the Nassim Hamed of Aston Villa podcasters. I was fighting fit when I was fit. And then I turned into Nassim. Then, if anybody's seen Nassim Hamed since he's given up boxing, I've gone that way as well. So that's my origin story there, Gary, and that's how I try to do how I try to juggle all 3 of them. But it does get tough at times, obviously, with family life as well. And as you know, like even over the last season, there was a couple of team sheet tantrums I wasn't able to do, just coincided with bedtime. And let me tell you, I've got a 3.5, nearly 4-year-old daughter that if daddy doesn't put her to bed, there'll be hell to pay for me and for everybody else in the house. So it takes precedent, as everybody here will agree. That stuff like that takes precedent. But we'll figure something out for Thursdays this year. We'll figure out something for Thursday nights this year so that I don't miss too many of them. Lally sent in a question here, son. If you were to do a scouting pod on potential championship players, who'd stand out? And are there any Morgan Rogers style hidden gems out there? That is a great question. I haven't done a ton of looking in the championship outside of I've got a couple of favorites that I like to go to look at in the championship. I think Tom Fellows is a fine player. Don't know would he make it in the Premier League. Don't know would he be a Morgan Rogers. Tom Fellows of West Brom, that is. And I'm sure he has. If he hasn't, and I haven't been keeping up with lots of things in the last 6-7 days, so I don't even know if there's any links with him to any other teams or anything like that. But he's interesting. I think he topped the stats for assists last year. That winger, one of the wingers for Stoke. I can't remember his name. He's Dutch guy. Is it Manhoff? Just think he's a nice, very, very solid player. Once again, I don't know could he cut it in the Premier League, but he's somebody that I like. I'm kind of caught a small little bit off guard with this one. A lot of the championship players are at the moment I'm beginning to see are a lot of the ones that kind of catch the eye are real effort players. So the thing with Morgan Rogers, and I think it's fair to say the thing with Morgan Rogers is I don't think anyone expected him to be this good this early. And there's a lot of projection with regards to when you sign somebody from the championship. And that's fine. And that's definitely something that they can work in your favor. There was a guy from Oxford that I like. Once again, I don't know, is he going to be, would he be Premier League standard? I always get his surname wrong. Tyler, I actually have to Google his name. Tyler Goodhouse? Is that his name? Tyler Goodhouse? Tyler Goodrum. Tyler Goodrum. He's 21 years of age. He's actually Irish as well. Or he's Irish qualified. Just has a lot of just has a lot of good qualities to his game. I would imagine he'd get a move from Oxford this year as well. But is there anyone that I bring in there for Aston Villa off the top of my head? I don't really have somebody off the top of my head, no, from the championship. they would kind of match the Morgan Rogers. And what I'm talking about Morgan Rogers is 21 or younger. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. Now, obviously, there are players there, but just off the top of my head, I can't think of any there as well. But great question, on. And you know what? I think there's a podcast in it. Let's look at some young players in the championship. Because I don't have my scouting book here with me either, so I can't even flick through that. I usually keep that inside. Stephen Deacon says, with Harvey Elliott on the radar, I don't think we sign him in Asensio. Elliott would probably cost around 40 million because of English tax, but younger, so a better investment. But Asensio is proven and cheaper with higher wages. Who would you prefer? To be honest, I'd say neither. The Harvey Elliott one today came out, and Harvey Elliott's a funny player to me. It's almost like he stayed at Liverpool a year, 2 years, nearly too long, and he's not even there that long himself. You know, it would be a monumental task for him to break into that front three the way things are, and he's probably going to want to go and get full-time football now. Super talented player. I'm always weary of players that kind of make the big time at 15, 16 years of age and longevity within the game. Now, I don't see any reason why, like what I'm talking about here is obviously you've got your guys like Wayne Rooney, you know, he smashes his way onto the scene at Everton at 16 and was just an absolute precocious talent, and then, you know, carried that on into his senior career. Harvey Elliott's game has kind of stalled a small, but as it would do, because he's still only 20, 21 years of age, but he's got a bit of magic in his feet. So he's going to need to want to go to a club that's really going to be tailored to him. And when I say tailored to him, I don't mean like everything's built around him, but the way they play is going to have to suit his style, because he's not going to want to go to a club where it's going to take him 2 years to kind of grow into that style properly. He's going to need to hit the ground running, I think, for himself. And would it be at Aston Villa? I don't know. I don't even know what the cost is being quoted for Harvey Elliott at the moment. If it is 40 million, I would be shaking someone's hand and saying no, thank you. But thanks a million for offering. I like as I say, you're buying talent there. You're buying potential. You're buying something that, once again, you have to extrapolate it out like we did with Morgan Rogers. But then again, we didn't pay anywhere near that for Morgan Rogers. And going back to Owen's question previously, you know, if Elliott had stayed in the championship and had 3 very, very good years at championship level as opposed to moving to Liverpool, now he scored some sparklers for Liverpool, don't get me wrong, and you can't really turn a move like that down. But if he'd spent maybe 3 more years in the championship and then moved afterwards, we would have a bigger sample set to speak to with him. So I'm a bit wary of him, bit wary of it that way. But the talent is there. I just don't think Villa could go and splash that cash on somebody and then need to wait 2 years for them to I suppose to come up to speed. But once again, it's all projection. It's all, I suppose, it's where you see him. Where do clubs see him? Where do managers see him? Where do whoever's putting together the tactics, where do they see him fitting into, and can he fit into it straight away? Is going to be the big question with him. And I think it's going to be a big question he's going to have when he's talking to a team as well, because he needs to get his career going, and he needs to get it going now as well. I think that's a very interesting question. Chris McGrath says, if you could pick a current Irish player to play for Villa, who are you picking and why? Also, do they start? Well, everybody knows my love for Nathan Collins, centre half for Brentford. So it's going to be Nathan Collins. But for just to play devil's advocate, to talk about somebody else for a minute, Bristol City. Midfielder / right back / striker / centre midfielder / play wherever the hell you want, and Ireland's Timu version, and that's being a bit harsh, but you know what I mean, of John McGinn. Jason Knight is somebody I just love. Jason Knight, just love him as a player, love the honesty. He's about 270 games played at 24 years of age. He's scored, I think he's like 25, 26 goals. I know he played at Derby. He's the kind of the opposite to a Harvey Elliott, where he's really done his apprenticeship at Derby through the leagues, when Derby had that financial catastrophe, I suppose, if you want to call it that way, I was big, like that was maybe 3-4 years ago. So he's about 20 years of age, and he'd over 100 games played at 20 years of age. And I was big on Aston Villa take a punt on him, because you would have got him for very, very, very small money. He moved to Bristol City, which was a strange move for him, but he's getting tons of football there. You know, he's not going to be the most exciting player, but he's going to give you 14,000% of effort, you know, when he's out in the field. And when he gets that ball, he can drive with it. He's got a incredible energy. And I think he's somebody that if he was a small bit better on the ball and just a small bit more rounded footballer, you know, teams would love to have a player like that. You know, there's a massive area for or there's a massive kind of hole for those massive effort players to come in. Now, it's more of a mid-table Premier League position, I suppose, but you know, I could see him performing under Thomas Frank's Brentford. I think he would have been brilliant last year. You know, he's that type of player. He's just going to get around. Again, he's very much would need to be suited to a tactic to get the most out of him. But as I said before, he's played right back, he's played left back, he's played central midfield, he's played out wide, those wide midfielder positions, and he's played up top in his time in English football. So he's very much a kind of a guy you could just put anywhere, because he's going to give you everything he has when he goes out in the field. Where else are we? So, do I think Ali Meg says, do I think Ollie stays next season? I think he stays if next season, you mean like for the start of next season? Absolutely, yes. I don't see Ollie Watkins moving anywhere. I said in the Claret and Blue that I have a sneaking suspicion that we will get a new contract for Emi Martinez, and we will get a big interview from Ollie Watkins saying he's gone nowhere between now and the start of pre-season. I think the contract for Emi Martinez is probably wishful thinking at the moment, but you never know. Teams want to start coming in for them now if they're going to come in for them, because I think that the next 14 days will be very interesting. AVFC Vibes has not qualifying for Champions League ruled out the signing the likes of Eze. I think Crystal Palace qualifying for the Europa League has ruled out the signings of Eze. And yes, also I think that Aston Villa will. I think we're going to have a year anyway that it's probably this year whereby, you know, we won't go and spend watch me be wrong, and you know I want to be wrong, but we're going to have a year where we'll be a small bit frugal, and then it will then give us an extra year on the back end of PSR, even though PSR is going away, but you know, the squad rate, cost ratio calculations and all that kind of stuff will come into effect. But I there's no way Eze is coming to Aston Villa. I would be pretty equivocal in that one, I think, this year, but more so because I don't think Eze is going to leave Crystal Palace. I don't think he's going to leave Palace. Keku says, does Matty Cash need replacing, or do you consider him first choice right back next season? I don't consider him first choice right back next season, and if he can be replaced, I'd prefer to replace him with Andres Garcia. But again, as I said, the big piece here with regards to Matty Cash is Unai Emery's going to keep him around the squad as long as he doesn't get he's tinkered with that position so much that he's obviously not happy with it. But he's always gone back to Matty Cash. And until he gets the player that is going to usurp Matty Cash and stay there for good, I don't think that there's going to be an urgency from Unai to sell Matty Cash. But let's say we get the opportunity to upgrade on Matty Cash. I think that I think that they would do that, or they would bring in more competition for him. But ideally, I'd like to see the upgrade come from within house, you know, through Garcia, or maybe Nedeljkovic comes back and has a massive has a massive upper curve after his time in Leipzig, and maybe he still goes to Leipzig, but there's an awful lot of questions and answers, I think, still to be needed at right back position, because we don't know what we have in those two young guys. And as I say, there's been 6 players Unai's played there since he's came into the team, so he's obviously not happy with that position at all. Carlos Suntz asked me, would you ever consider Duran back on loan? I know he's had some dramas recently, but I'd still consider it if we didn't have to pay exorbitant wages. And you see, that's the thing, Carlos. You ain't get there's never a situation where you're going to get Jhon Duran back. The Jhon Duran back that we had in September of last year of 2024. That is never going to happen again. You cannot put the toothpaste back in that tube. That man is going to want money. He's also seems not to be in a great headspace if things are believed, with regards to fighting with players, fighting with his management. Precocious talent. Give me those feet any day of the week. Absolutely. But that's the thing. I don't think he's ever coming back I don't think he's coming back to Aston Villa on loan. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. If he does leave Saudi on loan, if he does leave on I doubt that Saudi are going to cut bait with him. Yeah, it would be very, very interesting to see. But I do not see him back in Claret and Blue next year. No way. I don't. Which is unfortunate because I'd like for him not to have left in the first place. Tribe of God says, any thoughts on the difficulty in replacing Emmy? How he influences our play? I've done a couple of podcasts on this. I think that, and you know what? There's a really, really good listen to John Johnson on the 1874 podcast. He talks about Lucas Chevalier and what Lucas Chevalier brings to it. I started off thinking that to lose Emmy Martinez would be an absolute disaster. And the more I've looked at French, as I said previously, like La Liga goalkeepers, French goalkeepers, young goalkeepers, and also in Serie A, there's a couple of mature goalkeepers there that will be probably on the move. I think, I'm not going to say he's replaceable, but I think that if he does go, we could get a goalkeeper in that could suit the way we play. So I think it's like there's a lot of goalkeeper merry-go-rounds to happen this year. Obviously, you've got United, you've got whatever's going on at Barcelona at the moment with Ter Stegen. You've got Juventus always want to upgrade their goalkeeper. And then what happens with their goalkeeper, Di Gregorio? You've got Milan who are looking to sell Mike, I can never pronounce his surname. What are they going to do with goalkeepers? Atletico Madrid are looking to upgrade an All Black. What happens with him? There's a lot of good goalkeepers floating around the place. Whatever, it's mad sometimes that this just happens, whereby there's just like an explosion of movement in one area of a type of player. You see it an awful lot in American sports as well. Where there's just a real top-heavy group of players that are available at any given time. And I think that there's dominoes to fall in that goalkeeper market. I hope we keep Emmy once again, but there will be options there. There won't be like Emmy Martinez replacements, because there just isn't another person like him out there from the intangibles he brings and everything. But it's probably a good year to need a goalkeeper if you can talk one of the good goalkeepers to come in and replace him. And that's going to be a job that's going to be harder said than done. Gav Deacon asks, what's my thoughts on changing the stadium name? I don't care. Call it whatever you like. I will call it Villa Park. I genuinely could not care less what's written down on the match sheet to call the ground. It'll always be Villa Park to me. I know other people see different. I know other people don't want to do it. I think it's just necessary to name the stadium now. I think it's necessary to call it. Like if you want, like people have said, Fortress Villa Park. You keep Villa Park in it, and put a sponsor's name at the start. It genuinely is no skin off my nose, but I know other people will have different views on it, and that's completely okay. Like as I say, but for the sake of, I wouldn't give it away either, though. I think that's one of the big things, Gavin, is that I think one of the big things here is that, like, I would be pissed off if we sold the naming rights to the stadium for a meager or a nominal fee or a medium fee. I think that the legacy that the club has, the fact that we're the biggest club in a huge catchment area within the second city of England, I think it means something, and I think that it's something that the club should push the boat out for it. And I think we should get decent money for it because it's going to be there. It's going to be visible. It's going to be something that's said 19 times minimum every single season. So it's for me. I think it would need to be something up there with what Betano are paying us for a front to shirt sponsor every year. And I think that if they are going to do a deal, they should sign into a long-term deal. But it's massive. Like, we see how far behind we are in sponsorship deals in comparison to Spurs, even Man United, all those. It's a no-brainer. Name Bodymore Heath. Name Villa Park. Get a extra sleeve sponsors. Get your front of training kit sponsor. I don't mind being a billboard until we grow out our revenues, because it's one or the other. It's either get sponsorship in, or it's put money on ticket prices or sell our best players. And to be honest with you, I'd be able to suck up seeing Boddington's Villa Park. And I don't know why I picked that off the top of my head. So don't come at me for that. But I'd be able to suck that up, no problem, if it meant that ticket prices were frozen for a year, or there was a 1% increase or something like that, as opposed to consistent 5% increases every single year. So that's where I would be coming from on that one. Where else are we? Would I sell Jacob Ramsey? Again, opportunity cost for me. I don't want to get rid of players that we have coming through the academy, but the world that we live in at the moment is 50 million for Jacob Ramsey it's 50 million. And I know that's an overinflated price for him, I would think, because there's you would need to have a buyer at that price. And we've just talked about Harvey Elliott going for 40 million a moment ago, and Jacob Ramsey has infinitely more football, I would imagine, played than him. I don't have any statistics up. And he's a way bigger sample set on paper than him. So yeah, would I sell him? I like Jacob Ramsey. I like to have a local lad in the team. But again, where we are in 2025 coming into 2026, money talks. And I think he's sellable if the money is right. Like, if we sell him for 20 million, you watch the fury that comes out of my mouth, and watch my Limerick accent become very, very, very pronounced in a podcast. If we were to sell him for 20 million just to get over PSR, I'd be rightly pissed off with that. But once again, opportunity cost. If there's somebody out there that wants to pay Elliot Anderson money for him, I remember Elliot Anderson went for 50 million. And once again, Jacob Ramsey has a bigger body of work done than him. May not be as talented, who knows? Was definitely a player that was playing to the same levels as Elliot Anderson prior to him getting injured a year and a bit ago. So who knows? But would I sell him? Once again, opportunity cost would have to be, like, would I sell Jacob Ramsey in a vacuum? No. But would I sell him for 50 million? Yeah, I would. I would, depending on who he was going to, and that may seem harsh, and I'll come to a lot of the comments here in YouTube. I'm just getting down through the Twitter ones here first. But yeah, as I say, I think it's but I don't think he goes this year unless he absolutely has to, because I think Unai loves him. Rachel asks thoughts on Calvo coming in and how it'll help with the naming rights, Villa Park sponsorship. I don't know how it's going to go with the Villa Park sponsorship. Big thing for Calvo is Calvo has worked with teams who've been in significant PSR issues before, worked with talking to UEFA. He's worked on stabilizing ships before, specifically at Roma and at Juve. He did the deal for Spotify, was it, to come in and no, it wasn't Spotify. Was it Spotify? No, it wasn't. It was Rakuten to come in to sponsor Barcelona. So he's got some pluses in the corridor there, and he's got some minuses by the fact that, you know, the sponsorship for Juventus, the Juve fans felt that he didn't do a good job on that, and obviously they were sponsored by Jeep, was it, that were owned by that were the owners' company. They came in and sponsored. He couldn't find another company to sponsor outside of that. So he does have question marks over the last year and getting people in to sponsor Juventus. But he's also done a good job in the past as well from that point of view. Simon Paul asks, how true do you think what Pete said on the Holy Trinity show is about Villa not being in trouble at all regards? I have absolutely no idea. I saw someone do a podcast today, and it wasn't Villa related, where they said Villa were, that they run the calculations, Villa needed 50 million before the 30th of June. I've also seen the Athletic piece where Villa can, depending on what way you read the accounts, Villa can actually spend 15 million between now and the 30th of June. I don't think anyone has a blind bit. Sorry, I won't say I don't think anybody has a blind bit of anything, but I would say that it's very difficult to know because a lot of the numbers are assumed. We don't know what contracts have gone up and stuff like that. So it's very much a grey area here, from PSR at the moment. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to listen to an awful lot of podcasts, so I didn't listen to, and I normally do listen to Pete, so I didn't listen to that, so I don't know the context behind it. But for me, I have absolutely no idea where I'm at. I'm not one bit worried about it, to be honest with you. I'm not worried about PSR, and the reason I'm not personally worried about it is that it became like last year. It took the fun out of being a fan during when we were in the Champions League and we were getting ready for Champions League season. It took the fun out of it, the whole Douglas Luiz piece. And I remember bringing the kids down to see my parents down, so they live maybe about an hour and a half away from me. And the Douglas Luiz thing was really transpiring, and the Timur Bunham thing, and Lewis Dobbin, and Barnechea, and it wasn't Barnechea, it was Huyson, and it was Matthias Sule. You get yourself wrapped up in that and trying to do calculations of who's who and what's going to count towards PSR. And I found it really kind of, I had to take a step back from it and go, this is bollocks, like, if you excuse my language, that we should be looking at football. And I got kind of very frustrated with the finance thing last year. So I've kind of deliberately stepped away from it this year. And on the 30th of June, somebody's going to tell me whether we've cleared PSR or whether we haven't. But by the urgency or the lack of urgency, I suppose, of sales currently coming out of Aston Villa at the moment, and whether teams are just waiting until the last minute to give us an offer, I've absolutely nothing to go on at the moment. I've nothing to go on. But as I say, I hope Pete is right. We're not in massive trouble. I don't think we're 50 million away from FFP. I think we're actually closer to breaking even. I think probably the Athletic probably have a better number on it. And I seen Swiss Ramble kind of went with the Athletic numbers, and kind of, I think it was Swiss Ramble that said, yeah, they kind of check out from more or less. They're talking 20 to 15 million they need to find between now and the 30th. But we'll see what happens. Who knows? It's above my pay grade for sure. Amanda asks, that was about Eze as well. Sorry, I answered that one as well. John Griffin asked about my thoughts on the new away jersey. I love it. I have it inside. I haven't worn it. I've also brought the new training top that they released there as well at the start of May. I bought that. I've gotten a delivery, so I got loads of deliveries there. I got this. I got a claret version of this with Muller on the front as well, 18, and it has the date of the 1996 League Cup final on it as well. I don't know whether it's real or whether it's a replica, but it's another great find. I have and I got the t-shirt and the hoodie from the DNA range. One thing actually I found with those is that the t-shirt I ordered a size up, the hoodie I ordered a size down from what I normally get, and both of them came in the exact same size. So just in case anybody is ordering, and I've got a weird body shape, so just in case anybody is big up top like myself, you have a barley chest, I went to a bigger size on the t-shirt, and I'd say my normal size in the hoodie, and it worked out perfectly. They both fit perfectly for me. So but to go back to the away shirt, I like it. I'm a fan of black shirts. I'm a fan of dark shirts anyway, so I'm definitely all about it. I'm going to kind of give Twitter a break now in a moment, come to the YouTube comments in a minute, but there is one here. Alberto Solano says that I've seen some people criticize Munchie. What are my thoughts on him? Munchie is working in a different climate than anybody that we've ever had at the club has before, from a role point of view, and also from where the club actually is. point of view. We've never had a director of football that's been able to work the phones and to convince players to join us, like Amadou and Anna, like Asensio, like Rashford. We've never had that before because we've never had a Champions League to offer them. So he's been in the job, whatever it is it 1 year, is it 2 years now? And I think that the big thing for Munchie is that we have, like, this is going to be the off season where I think it's probably the fairest to grade him on. I'm not giving out about him at all. You cannot take it in a vacuum. You have to take it from the point of view that he is dealing with. He's got a leash on him from a spending point of view, and he also has to negotiate deals out. Like, it's him that negotiated the money for Duran. It's him that negotiated getting Diaby. It's essentially the money we paid for Diaby plus, I think, a small fee on top back. I think we made profit on Diaby. He negotiated those deals. And it'll be interesting to see when he negotiates player outgoings for this season, because I'm kind of at the stage where I'm not too worried about what we negotiate paying for players at the minute, as long as we can afford it. But we've been absolutely puce and rubbish at selling players for decades now. Absolutely rubbish at selling players for decades. And that has to change. So that's how I'm going to judge Munchie. Is what can he sell players for? Is he a good seller of talent that we have at the club? And I think, bearing in mind what we whatever, you think about the Douglas Luiz deal, and a lot of people jump to conclusions with regards to that one. We don't know with Barnett, and people are jumping to conclusions with regards to Barnett, PSR sales, all that kind of stuff. At the end of this off season, I think is where I would judge him, I suppose, in the plus or minus. But I just think that the constraints he's had to work under, while obviously trying to get us back into the Champions League, you have to say he's done a good job, because we bought well enough to get to the last 8 in the Champions League. Potentially could have gone further against the team that gave the team that eventually won it a good run for their money, albeit we gave ourselves a lot to do. And we were goal difference away from getting into the Champions League again. So I think, on the balance of power there, you'd have to say that he comes out with decent results for like, I certainly would be criticizing him, because I think it's just too early to criticize him currently. Right, I'm going to give Twitter a break here. I'm going to come to comments on YouTube, because so I'm going to, there's a ton of comments here. I'm going to go right back up to the top and just come down here and see questions. This one was just before I asked people to put in the question piece, but James Woodcock says, do you agree with the current transfer policy of buying bigger name players and higher salaries, or would you prefer us to adopt more of a scouting style similar to Brighton, where you flip players within 12 to 24 months for big profit? Well, this is a brilliant question, James, and I don't know where I stand on it, because show me where Brighton have qualified for the Champions League, or show me where Brighton have even looked like they were going to have a sniff of qualifying for the Champions League. Yes, they've got a brilliant balance sheet, and they're supplying Liverpool with all the best players that Liverpool could ever want, and Chelsea and the likes. But I think for me, there's a balance to be struck, and that's why I did my most recent young scouting series thing, and I've got one on defenders that I just haven't had a chance to put out yet. So I think there has to be a balance in both. I think the club need to get players coming through their academy, and they've been doing that. The likes of George Hemmings that they have in the academy, they've bought him in. Other players like Mason Kocher, they've bought him in there to the academy. So they're doing it with the academy, but do they go and look for the next Carlos Baleba? I think every club wants to look for the next Carlos Baleba. But my biggest thing here is that Brighton have not fulfilled the potential of those players at that club, because they're consistently finishing in and around 6th to 10th every year. They need to, like, for me, their balance sheet is brilliant and they're finding some great players. But you could label the criticism at them as, are you letting them go too early, or can they not reach their potential at your club? Why are they leaving? Why are those players leaving? Why can't you keep them around? Like, why isn't Caicedo playing beside Alexis McAllister in midfield anymore? And they did play beside each other in midfield for Brighton, and Brighton retooled again and stayed the same. So they've got a super scouting department. But my big thing is, I don't want us to get big name players and higher salaries. I don't want that to be the sole piece. I've no problem with one or two marquee signings every season, and then bringing in the likes of Andreas Garcia, the likes of, I suppose realistically, you could probably say that like we've brought in Morgan Rogers, Garcia, Nedeljkovic. We've tried to do that. We've tried to find a happy medium, but I kind of want to see more of a happy medium even. I'd like us to take a chance at signing somebody like a Lucas Stassin or a Franjo Ivanovic and seeing if they can force their way into our club. It would take 20 million probably, or 15 to 20 million to sign one or two of those. But I would have a go at that, and one of them plays with Brighton's sister club in Union Saint Galway's, or however you pronounce it in Belgium. But a great question, James. Great. It'll be interesting to see what way we go. James Wood says, why would you give United a helping hand by selling them the world number one when there was 20 plus points? I wouldn't. The only way that I would be sending Emi Martinez to Manchester United was if he kicked the door off the hinges to my office and said the only club I'm going to go to is Manchester United. Otherwise, I'm just going to do a Winston Bogart on it and not play football ever again. That's the only way, me personally. And I tell you one thing, if Emi Martinez goes again, just like the Jacob Ramsey, you will see the laser beams shoot over my eyes with anger if he was to go to Manchester United, because it's not for it's essentially it's. I've first seen him go to Saudi and go to Man United, because that way he would be pinning his colours to the mast. Whereas, you go to Man United, it's to me, it's heresy. I'm still bitten by Dwight York going to Manchester United. I've told you guys, the people who listen to this podcast will remember, I was 13, and on teletext, CFAX in the UK, that's where I found out that Dwight York had gone to Manchester United. And I remember bursting out into the kitchen. My mother was baking apple tarts or something like that, and I remember going, "Ma'am, Dwight York is after leaving to go to Manchester United," and she didn't care. And I remember being right annoyed with her for about 2 days because she didn't give it the level of I didn't get any empathy back for Dwight York leaving Aston Villa, and I still haven't forgiven Manchester United for the mental torture they put me through on that day. So for me, it would be heresy to move to Manchester United. But we'll see how it pans out over the next couple of weeks. Where are we? Question. Naming rights. I've gone through that one already. And the thing about naming rights is, I think it would be 50-50 if you were to put a poll to the fan base, because there is a lot to be said for tradition. But me personally, in 2025, and the way that the game has gone, I would be saying I would be signing it off, but but not for a meager amount. I would have no problem doing it myself. But it's not something I would get into a fervent argument with anybody over. I can completely understand the other side of the argument as well, because realistically speaking, up until about a year or 2 years ago, I would have been, no, don't sell the naming rights to Villa. But the game has changed. So for me, you got to play the game. Where else are we? Question. Dickie asks, who's going to steal the show at the Black Sabbath gig? There's Ozzy's just going to steal it. Like, Ozzy's just or encapsulated. Like, even when he's done his TV stuff, he's been box office stuff for that as well. So I think it's going to be a brilliant night. I really do. Obviously, I'm not going to be at it. I know there's a lot of people who couldn't get tickets to it, and I'm sure, as with everything that goes up in Ticketmaster, they're incredibly inflated and dynamic pricing and stuff like that, which is shite for the fans. But if anybody's lucky enough to go to that Sabbath gig, it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And I think it's what better place to have it than to have it in Villa Park as well. And Geezer's going to give it socks up there as well for his beloved Villa. So yeah, great. It's a couple of. I can't even remember the date of that gig now, but Must be coming up soon, I think. Where else are we? Question. Could you do a centre back scout episode? I did. I have the raw data done for a young, predominantly South American centre half scouting series. Two Argentinian centre halves, a Brazilian centre half who's actually pretty decently known, and there was another guy from. But there was a guy from Italy as well. I had to get an Italian young centre half in there, Catenaccio and all that kind of stuff. But I'll try and get that out over the next few days. I have Sam Ty actually jumping on the podcast tomorrow. So for anybody who's interested in that, come and join us for that too. But I'll try and get the podcast out then on Wednesday or so. David Dams asks, would you let Rodgers go for 100 million? Pains me to say, but I take it. I think Emery would use the money wisely. And here is the bare bodkin on that one. There's I think Villa would make a stand on it just for posturing sake. It would be over 100 million, so that the sale isn't compared to Jack Grealish. Now, why are we in the PSR situation that we're in at the moment? I hear you all ask. Arguably, and I've been saying this recently, arguably the reason that we're that we've had to sell Jhon Duran, we had to sell Diaby, we're staring down a bit of a barrel even after having Champions League, is that we sold Jack Grealish for 100 million and we replaced him with three players that arguably have not cut the mustard in Leon Bailey, for what we paid for them and what. Now, we could still get the majority of our fees back, but Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, and Buendia. Injuries, lack of form, not being able to play in a top two. There's loads of different contexts and reasons why the three of those are, you could say, are now at a stage whereby we're 3 years down the line after signing them, and the club have outgrown them, or potentially the club are looking to move on from them. I think it's fair to say we have moved on from Danny Ings. He lasted 18 months at the club. Looks like Buendia is probably going to be sold at some stage this off season if the money is right, and it looks like Bailey's going to be sold. They were the three people that Purslow came on and said, we lost Jack Grealish, we replaced him with three players. And we didn't really replace him with three players, because all of those three players, as I say, Ings only lasted 18 months. Buendia was in and out of the team. Obviously, there was injury there, and that was catastrophic for him at a time when everything was looking right for him. And Bailey is blown hot and cold. Obviously, brilliant season last year. Injuries and form, he hasn't really been able to replicate it this year, albeit he's had one or two very, very good performances. So I think if you're in a situation where you can get 18 to 20 for Buendia, and you can get 25 back on Leon Bailey, coming from Saudi, I think 45 million recouped from that 100 million would be good business back. It'd be better than a kick in the arse back, should I say. But the reason I'm bringing that up is, you said I would trust Emery to use the money wisely. I'm sitting here on the 16th of June 2025 saying that they haven't worked out. But at the time when Villa signed Danny Ings, Buendia and Leon Bailey, they were exactly the three types of players we needed. We needed a goal scorer. We needed a kind of a fox in the box goal scorer in Ings, and he had proven to be a goal scorer too for Southampton and for Burnley, and had his injury history as well. We needed somebody who was creative. Buendia was after shooting the lights out for Norwich prior to that. Looked like he was going to be the right signing. Arsenal were in for him as well. We beat Arsenal to his signing. And then Leon Bailey, the pace coming from the Bundesliga. We knew we needed pace to replace. We needed a dribbler to be able to replace Jack Grealish. But as we see, that none of them hit the same heights, I suppose, that they did at their previous clubs when they came to Aston Villa. So, I would love if you gave me a concrete guarantee that we would spend that 100 million and we would buy three players to increase their value, that 100 million outlay becomes 250 million in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. I think you'd be foolish not to snap our hands off at that. But I think from a point of posture, Aston Villa will look to sell for over 100 million. So there aren't any Grealish comparisons there as well in the how we would reutilize the sales afterwards. I might have overthought that a small bit as well, David. But I might have overthought that. Where else are we? Anything about a question on the front foot? Ollie Watkins to Arsenal? Nope. I don't think Ollie Watkins is going to Arsenal this off-season. Where else are we? It's a repeat question about centre halves. Where is any more questions? Just for those of you guys who are putting questions in there, if I'm scrolling down looking for question at the start. If you've put something in there and I haven't gotten to it, just put question, and I'll pick it up in the back end as well. So here's a good one from Ad. Question: can you actually see any of our youth from under 18s upwards actually breaking into our first team, or will they all eventually become PSR fodder? I think the club absolutely love Hemmings. I think they love him. I really do. I think we've a better chance now with Shah being made the 21s coach. I think we have a better chance because that's a young 18s team, a youngish 18s team. Getting them up to 21s, I think they have a better chance of sticking in and around, of being in and around the club. The likes of Tristan Rowe, the two centre halves that are there, Ruth and the other guy, his name escapes me. Maybe not Carl. Yeah, Carl. Aidan Borland, obviously, you know, somebody who I wouldn't be surprised if Aidan Borland was made the bench a bit this season, or maybe even gets a loan to a decent championship club. And then you've obviously got Mason Cotcher and you've got Rory Wilson now that are in there. So big year for Rory Wilson. 2 years, signed that 2-year extension. He's got next year and he's got the year after. And at that stage, he's going to be what, 22 years of age? You know, a lot of promise. And this goes back to the Harvey Elliott piece again. Guy was absolutely prodigious at 15, 16 years of age, Rory Wilson. You need to have a lot go your way to make it in the game of football. You need to be advised correctly. You need to work on your game. You need to not get ahead of your station too early. And you need to suck it up and go, right, even as a 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, you know, if I take my licks from a wage point of view and a fondness of myself point of view for these couple of years and keep my head down and work, arguably, like, and I know when I said fondness for myself and Cristiano Ronaldo are not going to work in the same sentence, but arguably like Ronaldo did, like, you know, say what you like about Cristiano Ronaldo, he's never ever stopped working on himself, whether it be from a physical point of view, whether it be from a mental point of view, whether it be from a technique point of view, you know, and he is a unicorn. I know that, and I'm not equating him to Roy Wilson or to any young players like Harvey Elliott or anything like that at all, because he is a unicorn from his skill set. But you know what you kind of sacrifice at the start, you got to remember that as what I mean by that is, like, you know, maybe looking for too much wages or trying to force moves before you're 21 to get money to look after your family, which is a massive reason why people do it. If you kind of sacrifice that in the first 3 or 4 years of a professional career, and provided you don't get injured, and that's another big intangible as well, you know, you will reap the benefits of that into the back end of your career afterwards again. You know, so but it's difficult, you know, when the money's been pumped at you, you don't think about longevity, you think about what's coming at you, and you think about making generations before you and generations after you safe in the knowledge from a monetary point of view that they're not going to have to work a whole pile, you know, and it's a difficult one. But I've been on a massive tangent there, Ed. So to answer your question, I think Borland, I think Hemmings potentially could get in around there. You've obviously got Ben Braggio as well. So yes, I do think we will see people given a chance in the first team at certain stages this year, because you don't have a historically good crop like that, and if one or two of them don't make the grade or aren't given a chance to make the grade, it feels like a wasted opportunity in the PSR era. Where are we? I'm 100% sure that that people have not put question at the start of it, and I've scrolled past it. So if I haven't read out your question from YouTube, put question at the start of it and re-enter it again in afterwards, and I'll get to it in a second. Richie Ryan asks, I know there's no question at this. If there was one unknown name player you would take a Villa in the morning, who would it be, Neil, with the position we need to fill? Massive position we need to fill is backup striker. Huge position. Arguably, for me, it's the number one position we need to fill this offseason. We just need to. It's as simple as that. We need to have a good young striker in there. And I did my series on it. I've just become enamored with Lucas Aston. I really have. I've become absolutely enamored. And when you say one unknown type of player, I got relegated with Saint Etienne this season, scored 12 goals. He will be in the next Belgian squad. He is going to get a move this off season. And, for in 2025, the value of somewhere between 18 20 million. I think you will be going back to the tried and tested you did with Jhon Duran, getting a good up and coming young striker in there for that type of money, and hoping that you can grow them. And if they can't beat Ollie Watkins out, that you can sell them for 40 million in 2 years' time or 50 million in 2 years' time. But they will get their opportunities. We've seen strikers will get their opportunities under Unai Emery. I think a lot of strikers will be looking at us. A lot of young strikers will be looking at us and licking their lips because, 29-year-old Ollie Watkins in there. There will be somebody looking to have a crack at taking his place. So yeah, I think it's the biggest, if not the biggest, the second biggest position in need for us. I genuinely do think that. I think we need, having somebody else that can come in there, because if we go into next season, we didn't score as many goals this season as we did the season before. You take Jhon Duran's goals out of it, you take Marcus Rashford's goals out of it. We're going to be down on goals next year based on who's gone out of the team so far. So we need to replace those some way, somehow. And we're going to need to do it at an opportunity cost point of view too. So for me, everybody's focused on the defense, and rightly so, because we're going to need. I think we need at least one addition, if not two additions, in defense. But arguably the biggest purchase we need to make is a backup plan, or even somebody to make Ollie Watkins the backup plan up top. Where else are we? Look down for more questions. Any more questions that are coming? There's not a question in here on it, but I just see a couple of names about players that potentially could be sold. I think a lot of people undervalue some of our players. I think a lot of people overvalue our players, and this is coming from a fellow who said that he'd take 50 million for Jacob Ramsey, when I don't think there's a club in England that will pay 50 million for Jacob Ramsey, just currently where we are at the moment. I think we will get players like Leander and Donker will be off our books. We're going to rip up Coutinho's contract. These are anchors around our neck, I suppose, really, from a PSR point of view. Again, signed in and around that time of the post Jack Grealish 12 months, 12 to 18 months. That or 12 months. Call it the Gerrard era if you want to. The 100 million obviously wasn't spent by him. Wasn't spent brilliantly, I think it's fair to say. And then you've got Donker, you've got Olsen, you've got Coutinho came in. I don't believe Capology's numbers for a second, but if I did, and the reason I don't believe Capology's numbers for a second, I've alluded to it on Twitter a couple of times, is I emailed Capology and I made up a complete and utter made up wage for Jhon McGinn, and 45 minutes later they changed that wage to the wage that I told them. So that's number one. You go on their website, they say they triple source the stuff, and maybe they do. Maybe I just guessed his wage. I don't know, but I've always been skeptical of it from that point of view. I still use it as a reference because it's the only point of reference we have, and that famously it had Keenan Davis down as earning 45 grand a week, which I don't think in any universe that was the case. But it has Robin Olsen earning 60 grand a week as our backup goalkeeper. That's a decent wage. of cash. You know, you average that out over the course of a year. That's 3.1 million in wages. Did I do my maths right? Yeah, I think I did. 3.1 million in wages. You've got Coutinho on 200 plus, if that's to be believed. Capology didn't even have him on that much, but I remember at the time it was reported at 200 million in and around, or 200 grand in and around that. It's 10 million a year. You know, so that's 13 million a year on our, like, that's arguably that's our PSR, but that's our PSR black hole. Then Donker, I don't know what he's on. Like, if I was to pick it from the top of my head, we'd say 70 grand a week. You know, that's 3.5 million. So at the end of the year, and this is rudimentary stuff, I know, from a bookkeeping point of view, but you just add up those three players. And what have you? 16.5, 17 million in wages in a year. Very rudimentary maths. I'm expecting now to look at the comments and go, oh yeah, I forgot to carry the one, or there's a decimal point in there or whatever. This maths is not my strong point. But like, if you go by the athletics numbers, we're 15 million in the whole for PSR. So like those three players. And I know two of them are off our books from the point of view of parts of their wages, if not all of their wages, with Coutinho being down at Vasco and then Donker being at Anderlecht. Was it Anderlecht? Yeah, I think it was. You know, but still, you know, if they were on our books, that would be a saving, you know, for us at that amount. That's what those three players took up on wages. And that's why when we get to the squad cost ratio piece, you know, what we're spending in wages needs to be looked at. And that goes back to the last question, I think it was, that Ad asked. That's why I think we will see one or two or three of those youth players get a chance, because I think we're going to see, and also there was another question about that James asked at the start about, do we go for bigger name signings as opposed to younger name? I think we're going to have to cut our cloth accordingly when the PSR or when the squad cost ratio stuff comes in. Whereby, if we've got a 25-man squad, that we have maybe 20 well-paid players, decently paid players, and we've got 5 players that aren't that well paid. Whether they're young players we've brought in on somewhere between the 20 to 30 grand wages, which not well paid, but you know what I mean, you know, very well paid in anyone's book, but in a footballer's wages point of view, like arguably this year when you look at it, we probably have maybe 22, 23 players earning decent wage, I would say. So that's something that's going to need to be looked at. And you know, while there isn't a salary cap brought in, squad cost ratio does kind of enforce a salary cap based on what your revenue is. You know, so we need to grow that revenue. Going back to the naming rights, you need to grow that revenue. That's why I'm unequivocal about just sell it off and forget about it. No one has to call it that name at all. It's happened before. Like Upton Park was the bowling ground. I don't even know which one is the correct name for it. I don't know. I have no idea. All that kind of stuff. So revenues are going to need to grow, and that's going to help PSR. And that's why I'm thinking that, like, if you were to offer me in the morning and go, sell your women's team for 100 million to the owners, I would do that. But the viability of you can't do that again into the future over naming rights for 5 years for 100 million for Villa Park. In 5 years' time, you get another 100 million again for naming rights, and in 5 years minimum, and in provided you aren't in League One or the Championship, and in 5 years' time, you get another injection of cash. You know, so naming rights can be a cyclical revenue generator for you, just like front of shirt sponsors. Whereas the selling of the women's squad is a one-time only get out of jail free card. So that's why I would prefer them not to play that get out of jail free card and play the sponsorship of Aston Villa, the Villa Park card first, because it becomes a cyclical. It becomes a cyclical revenue point. Then, you know, where you go, okay, well, it's up next year. We're going to go look for a new sponsor of the stadium next year. And again, who cares? It's going to be, for me, I would say it's going to be called Villa Park. And who was it? It was a primetime Villa said as well today. He did a mock-up of Coca-Cola and whatever, and he was talking about, I think that's interesting as well, because sponsorship for the warehouse project as well. Sponsor that with a different sponsor too. Like, I'm not going to say it's going to be the O2 Arena or whatever, but maybe it's the T-Mobile warehouse, or maybe it's the Cadbury's warehouse, or it's the, I don't know. Sell sponsorship for everything. You can always choose not to renew sponsorship and go without a sponsor in future if it grates at you. But that's where the women's team is the in case of emergency break class. Now that it's in playing, it's not going to be taken away. Like, question: like Baddy, move on to other options. I like him as a player, but again, I don't know whether we need to throw another. Well, we do need to throw another 30 million centre back in there. I want players who want to be like Yashin Ozkan, who started crying and started learning English the second he realized he was moving to Aston Villa. I went in and his mother started learning English. You know, there's a quaintness about that, and I know you're not going to get that. And I know like but I can speak English anyway, so that's a moot point for him. And you can only go on what papers tell you and stuff like that. But if his heart wasn't in moving to Villa previously, and it still wants to stay with the Sevilla project, and Villa would be like forcing Sevilla's hand to purchase him, maybe it's not the best thing to do. But from a defender point of view, he's a really good defender. But again, he's not the only centre half out there that we could buy that could improve our defense. I think that's for sure. Micah Richards asks, favorite Villa shirt ever, an all-time moment. I presume this is in my lifetime. Like it'll take a lot not to, like, the jumping around the sitting room I did when Savo Milosevic scored that goal against Leeds was just like it was bonkers stuff. That's when it just stands out in my mind. The 94 Cup, watching it with my grandfather. And the moment when so I wouldn't have obviously been as up to date and wouldn't have known about lineups and stuff like that, because I wouldn't have been following as much in 94. I was 9 years of age. But I remember turning on the TV and seeing a Schmeichel was out and Les Sealy, RIP, was in goals. And I remember that, I remember exactly how I felt. And I remember I was actually stunned when I saw that in that moment. And obviously it was known that Schmeichel wasn't going to play for weeks before. And so there are just a couple of moments from my childhood that really kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning. But being in Villa Park for a Celtic game this year as well was like a bolt from heaven. That kind of stuff. My favourite Villa shirt, you know, that one there is just has a lot of sentimentality for me. It really does. The Luke shirt and to be honest with you, this year's shirt, there would be my top three in my time following Aston Villa, sponsoring Aston Villa, I was going to say. But yeah. But any more questions there? Mark Wood is asking about Tammy. I think you could get him cheap enough. His time at AC Milan, his time at Roma, like he great season at Roma. Does his ACL or Achilles tendon, can't remember which one he does, comes back, scores a few goals, goes to AC Milan, doesn't have the season, but then no one has that season they wanted at AC Milan. I'm going to say no. I don't want to go down the road that we've trodden before again with regards to that. But I think that somebody could get him for sub 20 million. And I don't think he's that old. I think he's only like 26, 27. Could be wrong on that. I've no point of reference on it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him find his way back to the Premier League this year. Not at all. There's somebody talking about Romeo Vermont for question. Oh yeah, Curry, you're Romeo Vermont. You mentioned him when I was doing the young striker piece. Yeah, I haven't watched a ton of him, but obviously he's with Club Brugge, I think, as well, isn't he? And he's got quite a few goals this season as well. Himself and another guy that I want to take a look at as well is he's actually been linked with Wolves is Romelu from Götze, or however you pronounce them, in Turkey. Had 13 goals and 9 assists. Brazilian guy. He's his first year in European football, playing in Turkey, and he looks like he's going to get a move straight out of Turkey this year as well. So somebody I want to take a look at. Not players I'm overly familiar with, I must say. I'm not overly familiar with. Question: would you have Gavin Bazzuno as your second goalkeeper? Yes. Yes is the answer. I don't know what he has left in the tank after his injury though, but I would have him as a second goalkeeper. Yeah, I would. I would also, if we're talking about the Irish goalkeeper route, I would have Mark Travers as a second goalkeeper as well. I don't think we need to push the boat out massively. If Emi Martinez stays, I don't think we need to have a huge name sub goalkeeper. I don't think that. But we obviously do need a second goalkeeper for sure. And Gavin Bazzuno would be good. He's a decent goalkeeper. Injury obviously robbed him of a year and a bit. Went out to Standard Liège, if I'm not mistaken, on loan this year. But really highly thought of, obviously super young and really highly thought of within the Irish setup, and was the Irish goalkeeper prior to getting injured, and then gave Caoimhin Kelleher his break for Ireland as well. So money provided, I would have Gavin Bazzuno as a second goalkeeper. Sure, great shot stopper, very good shot stopper. What other questions do we have? I don't see any more questions. How about Dominic Calvert-Lewin? No is going to be my thing. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not my type of striker, number one. And I don't think he's the type of striker that will work in Unai Emery's system. And by all accounts, he's supposed to be a great guy, great person and everything like that. But no, I wouldn't have Dominic Calvert-Lewin in there. I think we need a bit more dynamism than Calvert-Lewin. Carrie asked a question: why do we abandon our sexy high line? It worked so well in 2023. I think probably, to be honest with you, I don't know, but I think we abandoned it because we had so many injuries at the start of the season, and we couldn't, like, between September and December, we had a murderer's row of a backline. You know, we didn't know what we could put in there at any given time, so I think it was just easier not to install it on a game week, and it takes a lot of work to get that installed. Also, I think we probably went away from it because a lot of our players were playing in international competition at during the summer previous, and then some of them came back later than others. So I think that, I don't know the reason, but they sound like two good reasons to me why, if I was a manager, I would want to be solely working on that for like a good few weeks before the season started. Even though we did well the year previously, I would like to do solely would like to work on it, and I would like to see it come back for evidence of the tape. I would like to see it come back for sure. But why do we abandon it? The only two reasons I can think of the top of my head is the fact that we had Carousel in our backline at times this year, and also that a lot of our players, like and I've got nothing to back this up on, I'm thinking Ezri Konsa, I'm thinking like Tyrone Mings was obviously injured to start the season, but we've got Konsa, we've Power away, with Dino away in international duty, we've Matty Cash. Even though Pow didn't get selected, though, did he? For we had a core group, it would be my thinking, that were gone, and you would need to have a good share of those guys in there to install it. Like the year previously, we would have had no international competition that I can remember anyway, big competition, but we would have had Diego Carlos would have been around, you would have had Mings was around, you would have, like, all those defenders would have been in and around and had a decent preseason, whereas we didn't have that this year. That's the only reason I can think of, and I'm open to any other reason, but off the top of my head. Where are we? KKM says, I use off season. See, we use off season here for Irish sports as well. I don't know what else to call it. Summer. Okay. Yeah, you said it there. Summer. Yeah. I don't know, but like you put in work in the off season. Yeah. And plus as well, yeah, it definitely is, like, we do call like the GAA off season over here for our Gaelic games. We do call it kind of the off season, and I am obviously influenced by American sports. My very first ever podcasting gig was in American sports, doing NFL. So probably am influenced from that point of view. Old habits die hard. Yeah, no one in England calls that, but I'm not in England. I'm in Ireland, so that's probably why I get away with it as well. Where else are we? Villa asks, are Villa interested in Christian Mosquera from Valencia? I could see why there would be. I don't think, like as I say, we will lose out on the. I can imagine that the Villa list, there's red lines gone through players that they would have liked to sign, but they can't sign until after the 30th of June. And that's just going to be the way it is. I've come to terms with that. You know, there are teams getting jumps on us and players for sure. Maybe Diego Coppola might be one of them. But we'll see. I think other teams don't want to sell in this financial year either. They sell next year, obviously, from and then again, you know, PSR and stuff like that isn't such a concern going forward. Like after next year, it's squad cost ratio in both Europe and in Premier League. So we just need to kind of get over this 30th of June and see what happens. But I could see why they definitely would be interested there as well. They will. I think Villa will sign a centre half. I think they definitely will sign a centre half. And that's not news to anybody. I think that's just that's just common knowledge. But I don't know who that centre half would be. Right. I think I am done. That's been an hour and 16 minutes. I thought I'd get maybe a half an hour out of this, but thank you so much to everybody for your comments and your questions. There was a lot of comments and questions on Twitter that I didn't get to as well. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much, but that's been great. Usually I struggle on these one-man podcasts, but Paddy is on his hollybobs at the moment. He will be back soon. And as I said, tomorrow I'm going to have Sam Ty on the podcast. And if you guys have any questions for him, please level them at me, please, by all means. And that will be, I don't know if we're going to do it live tomorrow. I'm chatting to him in the morning time. I think it's around 10:30. But if we don't do it live, it'll be out later on in the day. So this is a perfect chance to hit subscribe and click on that bell, as all the professional podcasters say. And yes, we did break 9,000 subscribers on YouTube, which I know we're never going to be the biggest podcast in the world. But it's these little milestones that I just want to say thank you to absolutely each and every one of you who clicked on that subscribe button. It costs you nothing to do, and it just throws us out there in the algorithm. And if nothing else, it boasts my the vanity meter inside my chest ever so slightly every time I get one of those subscriptions. So well done, guys, and thank you so much everyone who does follow the podcast, because everyone who follows it here, like I look down through the list of people who comment there. And the familiarity that we build up is great. So thanks a million for everything and for getting us over the line and liking and sharing and everything like that. 10K coming up next, and we'd love to make 10K by Christmas if we could. That would be fantastic. So anyone you know that might be a Villa fan that might like the podcast, let them know that we're actually around. That would be fantastic. And also on the audio platforms, if some of you guys don't follow on the audio platforms, even just liking us there, you don't have to listen to us there. Just going in there, clicking on an Apple podcast or whatever, and clicking on the plus sign. Same in Spotify, clicking on the, I don't really use Spotify, but the star symbol or whatever it is, just throws us out there as well. You don't have to listen to us in those networks either, but and also if you want to go in there and drop us comments or 5-star reviews or whatever, that's great. But that's enough of the setting. I'm never very comfortable soliciting or trying to sell the channel, as I say, because as I said at the very start, this is a hobby. This is not a lifestyle choice. Well, it is exactly a lifestyle choice, I suppose, but it's not something that I'm looking to I've got no aspirations to go into this professionally unless something was thrown into my lap, put it that way. So it's not something that it's very much just come on, have the chats and have a bit of crack, and anything else that comes from it is a massive bonus. So thanks very much, everyone. Back again tomorrow with Sam. As I say, you'll either see us go live at 10:30 tomorrow morning, or it'll be pre-recorded and put out afterwards. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to have Jay. You guys will know Jay White. He'll be joining me on Wednesday for a chat as well. And then Paddy should be getting back then from holidays soon, so he'll be back. And hopefully we'll be able to coast into this 30th of June date. I would imagine things will pick up between now and then, and we'll have a lot more to chat about. But in the meantime, I will try and bring out that centre half scouting series I have, the young centre half scouting series, and we'll try and become a bit more regular than we have been this week for podcasts over the coming days. And I hope to see you there, and I hope that you'll join us. But thanks a million for everything tonight and for keeping me company. It's nearly 11 o'clock here in Ireland, so I'm going to bid you adieu and say stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the villa.